Ich weiß nicht, wer die Chantal Spöri ist, aber die macht schöne Bilder.
Die ist mit mir ins Grab abgegangen. So, wir sind online. Irgendwann ist die grösste Ruhe als Alkoholiker.
Ist okay. Ich erst mal noch anstoßen.
Guten Tag in die Runde. Ist Beerensaft, keine Sorge. Ich hoffe mal, ihr seid alle fit. Und bevor wir beginnen, möchte ich noch darauf hinweisen, wir haben einen YouTube-Kanal, falls ihr das noch nicht wisst. Den findet ihr unter SWE-CH-Official. Und nächste Woche werden wir den ehemaligen King of Switzerland Mike Tuga haben, der dann auch eure Fragen beantworten wird. Falls ihr Fragen habt an ihn, sendet ihr uns entweder auf Facebook via private Nachricht oder auf Instagram auch private Nachricht. Aber wir werden auch noch die Fragen-Story veröffentlichen. Guten Abend an alle. Ja. Sorry, Steven oder Stefan. Wir warten auf Matt. Wir können da nicht deine Anfrage annehmen. Hi, Luca. How are you doing?
Und wie immer ist mir zu spät. Ich gehe mal Computer, dass ich noch was nachschlagen kann.
Ja, aber vielleicht. Weiß nicht, vielleicht mal in Zukunft können wir auch mal einen Livestream machen, bei dem unsere Fans online kommen können und dann uns Fragen stellen. Ja, wäre sicher noch eine coole Sache. Kein Problem. Ja, habt ihr schon Fragen an Matt noch, die ihr uns nicht geschickt habt? Momentan könnte ich das jetzt gar noch gut aufschreiben. Und falls ihr komische Geräusche im Hintergrund hört, das ist zum Teil Steffen und zum Teil ist das Barry, sein Hund. Kein Ding, kann passieren. Ja, wenn wir noch auf Matt warten. Jetzt eigentlich noch, also bevor Matt kommt, kann ich dann noch ganz kurz etwas erzählen, was mir gezeigt hat, dass Matt Wrestling wirklich liebt. Das war, wann war das? Vor etwa wahrscheinlich ein halbes Jahr oder so. Hat er mir geschrieben, also ich habe eine Story gepostet auf Instagram, bei der ich seine Shooting Star Press bei King of Switzerland 6 gezeigt habe und hat geschrieben, ja, es ist schwer vorstellbar, dass das schon ein Dreivierteljahr oder so her ist. Dann hat er mir geschrieben und wir haben wirklich lange miteinander gesprochen und es war eigentlich noch cool. Es zeigt wirklich, er hat wirklich Spaß am Wrestling. Gut, sonst würde er auch nicht. Wie? Ich sehe ihn
nicht. Er kommt gleich.
Eben, er ist noch nicht online. Ja, aber ich kann einen Request schicken. Danke für die Frage, Stefan. Ich werde die gerade noch aufschreiben. Das Handy hat das verschieben, sonst sehe ich nichts.
Entschuldigung, dass ich nicht
Kein Ding. Hi Damian. Und nur zum Klarstellen, wie gesagt, ich habe schon am Anfang des Streams erwähnt, das ist nur Traubensaft Und ich habe kein Alkoholproblem, bitte sehr. Also wirklich nicht, möchte ich nur sagen. Vorher falsche, ja, ist es vorher falsche Gerüchte entstehen. Aber in dieser Zeit, ja. Hi Chris. And Matt is online, so let's try to add him. Without any problem. The arms are raised behind the scenes. Everybody's happy. Hi, Matt.
How are you? Am I better this way, or can I turn it sideways, or does that screw it up?
The other way would be better.
This is better? Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta fix my setup then, but all good.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Yeah, well.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear. Do you know what exactly we're doing here, or should I explain?
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Well,
Maybe a refresher.
Well, it's a game show, and in the end, if you lose, you have to pay us endless amounts of money.
Mm.
No.
You're the one in Switzerland. I don't have any money. I think it's all there.
Yeah, okay, true. No, we just collected some questions from our fans that we'd like to ask you, and maybe there are some more questions coming during the live stream. And yeah, that would be the premise of the stream.
Sounds good.
And I'd like to start with a question that is quite weird. Is it true that your ID is signed with party time?
Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera set up here.
Oh, okay.
I had it oriented the other way. Fix this so then it's not. Get situated. I was set up for a landscape world, and now we're in a portrait world. That's what I get for trying to get ready.
It's always portrait.
Well, yeah. Between Zoom calls and this and that, and trying to get it all figured out.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
They're always different, so.
Yeah.
A couple seconds, and then I won't be a mess. All right.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay, we more in business there.
Okay. I have a question. Yeah, I wanted to ask that.
Okay, there we go.
Are you ready?
Now I'm ready.
Okay. A question that just came up. Is there a drum kit behind you?
Yeah.
Do you play?
Poorly, yes. So I was in a Misfits cover band, so we did all the original Danzig era Misfits stuff, 1977 to 1983. So I think they had roughly 30 songs. So we did all of those. So can I play all the old Misfits songs? Yes. Am I a drummer? No. Like, I could teach anyone what I know in like 5 minutes. So the old Misfits songs are so easy. Like, there's no fills, there's no thrills. It's just really basic whatever, so I can do that.
Hey, it's 5 more minutes of knowledge than I have, so hey, it's something.
Yeah, true, but not any more than 5 minutes.
That just came a question. What is your favorite Misfits song?
Today, Night of the Living Dead. Maybe later today, Hybrid Moments. Kind of goes between how I'm feeling. Children in Heat's already pretty sweet. Is also sweet. So yeah, all the old stuff's great.
Okay. I sadly never got into the Misfits. It's a shame.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Today's a new day to turn over a new leaf and get a new favorite band.
That's true. I'll look into it. I know some good songs now, so.
Yeah. Start with Night of the Living Dead.
Okay. The first question that I have for you, is it true that your ID is signed with Party Time?
Yeah, it's always party time. It was like a super last second. I don't even want to call it a decision because that makes it seem more conscious. It was just going to the DMV, getting a new license, taking the photo, and then they have you sign your name in a little like electronic box.
Yeah.
And that just seemed silly to me. And I remember thinking, like, when are they ever going to check this? No one's going to ever look at it. Like, it seems so silly. Whatever I scribble, they're just going to automatically put on the license. So in that split second, I was like, wait, don't write your name, write something hilarious. But I also didn't want to pause, because if you write your own name, there shouldn't be any reason to have a giant pause. So I was like, I have zero time to think about it, but I know I'm not going to write my name. What am I going to write? And the first thing that came into my mind was Party Time. So I was like, oh, time to write Party Time. So I wrote that. The funny thing is, this past year, I learned that voting by mail was a big thing, obviously, with the pandemic and everything.
Yeah.
So I learned that in order to get rid of voter fraud, they will sometimes check your signature against your driver's license that's on record. So when I went to vote by mail, I was like, oh no, like, do I write Party Time or do I write my name? Because sometimes they check it against your license. So if I write Party Time and they don't check it against my license, they're going to throw out my vote in like the most important election ever.
Yeah.
So basically, all my friends and family voted by mail ahead of time, and I didn't. So I went and voted on November 3rd in person because I was like, I don't want them to throw my vote away. Because I was thinking like, oh, it's not going to matter. Who cares? Party time, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, crap. Like, it might matter in a way that I never foresaw.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If everybody thinks like that, my vote doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, then you get weird results. So
then your name is Party Time, and
yeah. Okay, I didn't think that far ahead. I heard that you need the signature, but yeah.
Yeah, no, same.
Party Time. So yeah, let's get into some wrestling questions. How did your wrestling career start? Because you're active for a long time now.
Yeah, like a million years. My buddies, so basically, I'm like a straight edge punk. So I'd be walking around in high school with like straight edge t-shirts and Rancid t-shirts. And I saw an upperclassman also wearing straight edge t-shirts, also wearing Rancid shirts. So we always kind of saw each other, and we didn't know each other, but long story short, that was a guy named Josh Prohibition. So we kind of became friends through the music scene, and you know, we would hang out and talk about bands and all this stuff. And then one day he called me and he's like, hey, you got to come over and watch wrestling. And I wanted to go over his house really bad. Like, he was like 2 years older than me, so he was a senior, I was a sophomore. Like, I was like, this will be really cool. And he invited me over to watch wrestling, and I told him no. And I wanted to go over to his house so bad, but I just didn't want to watch wrestling. So I was like, wrestling. And he's like, oh, you got to check it out. Like, it's called ECW, which meant nothing to me. I just thought that was the name of a WWF pay-per-view or something. So eventually I told myself, and it's hilarious in retrospect, I was like, well, how bad could it be? I'll go over there and watch one single wrestling event. I'll live. I had never seen a pay-per-view in my life for anything, movies, anything. So I went over there, and one of the first memories I have is Shane Douglas coming out and swearing. And, you know, I was 20 years old or something at that point, and no one had ever sworn on my television in my life. So when he drops an F-bomb right off the bat, I was like, like, he's in trouble, we're in trouble, like, everyone's in, like, oh my God, this is like some illegal stream of insanity. I'm like, he just swore on television, this is national news. Like, I was like, oh my God. And then Francine came out, and she's like naked, and then New Jack like jumped off the roof of something and missed, and he's bleeding everywhere, and everything that I thought wrestling was, this wasn't. I was like, this isn't wrestling. Like, New Jack just jumped off a building well rap music played during the whole match. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then he hit somebody with a guitar, and there was like baby powder in it, and it was absolute. So I was going to punk rock shows and hardcore shows, and that's what was happening. Like there was fights every time, and people were getting hit with guitars, and like that's what I was attracted to, and that's what I thought was awesome. And then I saw this wrestling event, and that was happening, and I'm like, oh, it's punk. Like I get like New Jack flying off a building and bleeding everywhere was punk. So I was like, oh, I get this. And to this day, I still don't feel like it was wrestling. So I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's not wrestling, but I love it. So I'm like, when's the next one? How do we see more? Like, I need more of this. So in one day, that went from being like wrestling to like, whatever this is, I need more of it.
Yeah.
So, this is before the internet and everything. So Josh was basically, we watched the pay-per-view, and then he's like, well, he had 3 younger brothers. So they were like heavily involved in backyard wrestling, beating each other up in his mom's backyard. So the only thing left to watch, he's like, we can watch my brothers and I like beat each other up in the backyard. So I'm like, yeah, put it on. Let's go. Just more of this wrestling, whatever it is. And as we're watching it, I'm like, I was in gymnastics at the time. So everything that they were doing, I was convinced I could do. So I was like, and I don't think he even knew. So I was like, dude, I can do all this, right? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like a backflip? I can do one right now. No problem. Like in your kitchen. And he's like, what? So I'm like, let me know the next time you guys are going to beat each other up, and I'll come over and I'll flip onto you, and, party time. And that's sort of how it started, because, I never thought it would be a job, let alone a career. If you would have told me, I mean, that was like at least 22 years ago. So if you would have told me I'm still talking about or thinking about wrestling like that many years later, I would have thought you were crazy. But I sort of, like that's kind of how it began, because him and his brothers were all into wrestling. So they kind of swooped me up and caught me up in that world. And here I am.
That's like the special thing about ECW. I mean, it's something completely different. It attracts different people, and thank goodness you watched the wrestling show. So
it's funny now. I think sometimes, like if you're younger or if you're getting into wrestling, ECW is only something you're hearing about secondhand. Like if I meet a 20-year-old kid at a show, he didn't grow up on ECW. Like he wasn't, the day he was born, it ended. And that's crazy to me, because in my mind, every person is inspired by ECW. and everyone that likes wrestling, to me, just saw ECW and is like, yes, let's go. And only now am I realizing that's obviously not true at all. And again, a 20-year-old kid that comes up to me at a show, he didn't watch ECW at the time. Like maybe he's seen it since, but he doesn't understand like how revolutionary it was and how different. And that's kind of crazy to me, how there's not really an equivalent for that nowadays, and how some people only know about it second or third hand.
Yeah. Or they've seen the WWE version of it.
Yeah, sure.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, please.
And you talked about getting into wrestling, and a question that always wondered me or boggled me. How do you learn moves like the shooting star press or stuff like that? Do you just
I have a funny
and jump down, or?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a funny story about that move in particular, because again, I did gymnastics for 11 years at like an elite level. So all those moves, I don't want to say they're easy, but I had trained for 11 years specifically in that. So my dismount off high bar was a double backflip with a full twist. So doing a single flip was something that you learn at like 10 or 11. So so all those things. So the funny story is, when I started wrestling with Josh, I was like, oh, a big backflip is going to be my finish. And he's like, no, dude, do the gainer, a shooting star.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude, I'm telling you, big backflip. And he's like, no, man, I'm the wrestling fan. I'm telling you, if you do the gainer, people will go more nuts. And I'm like, because to me, there was no difference. I was like, no, man, big backflip. And he's like, I'm telling you. So one show, I was like, all right, I'll do the gainer and, prove you wrong. I do the gainer. Everyone loses their mind, especially this is like 99 or something. And I remember going to the back and I was like, oh, dude, you were totally right. And he's like, I'm telling you. And then I think that same show, someone came up to me afterwards and they were like, that 7-year itch was amazing. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And then I'm like, Josh, what the hell does that mean? And he's like, oh, that's the gainer. So I didn't even know the terminology. Like Josh had to tell me to do a gainer because I was like, all right, if you say so. He's like, people think it's harder, man. I'm telling you. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
Well, it worked, seemingly.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and kind of moving through your career now. You've wrestled in 28 countries. It was written on your Facebook profile. And do you have any countries on your wish list where you want to go still?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's 200 some countries in the world. So I've only been to 28. So I have over 200 more that I still have to go to. I always say the more you travel, the more you become aware of. Mm-hmm. So maybe 25 years ago, I would have been like, whoa, 28 countries is a lot. And now it doesn't seem like anything. So there's even countries that have wrestling that I haven't been to, I still feel like there's a ton. There's a lot within Europe. I mean, like Portugal has wrestling I've never been, Denmark, mm-hmm. Poland, the Czech Republic. And then if you start going to South America, I've only been to Colombia. So there's like mm-hmm. Argentina and Peru and Chile and Bogota or Bolivia, I think even has wrestling. China, India are huge, giant places that have wrestling that I haven't been yet. So I'm in talks right now with Costa Rica, Israel. So I hope to make 30 this year. And then I'll set my goal at 35 and then it'll be 40. So, I mean, I think 40 is like not easy, but it's doable. So that is kind of my focus, because if I'm not already the most well-traveled wrestler of our generation, I certainly aim to be. And something that kind of makes me, people always get caught up in their local scenes, and there's like little cities or there's states or there's countries, and it's always enlightening to kind of move beyond those things and see. You get caught up in the local drama, and then you're like, oh, the scene is bigger than this city, and then the scene is bigger than this country, and then the scene is bigger than this region, and then the scene is bigger than this continent. And then I have like this unique worldwide perspective on wrestling that I don't know if anyone really has, because I've seen these companies on 6 continents. So it's just like this. Even if I sat down with like Hulk Hogan or something, who, you know, changed all of wrestling, like he might be like, hey, what's it like wrestling in Russia? So it's amazing to be involved in this thing and still have this unique perspective on it. I mean, like you could be WWE champion, but you still only understand that world and that bubble. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, I have this broader view than arguably anyone, which is attractive to me. Yeah,
I can imagine. It's there are surely huge differences between like wrestling in South America and Europe, I believe, for example. Yeah. So it's definitely cool to see that. Yeah. And you said you wanted to reach 40 or whatever, but you're active for a long time already. Do you have any plans going forward, like a retirement at some point, or do you just take it as it goes?
Yeah, I never planned on it being a job or a career, like I said. So 22 years ago, I answered my first email and took my first booking, and then I blinked twice, and now here we are. So I'm like sort of caught up in this like snowball that just is going. So once it's going, I mean, can you even get out of it? It doesn't stop. So the time is just, as long as I'm having fun and traveling and getting to do stuff, you know, awesome. I keep getting offers and things keep being fun. So I have no, I mean, should I have a plan or some sort of exit plan? Or probably. Do I? Absolutely not. Have I ever seriously thought about it? No. Should I have? Yes. So I guess that's where I am. I mean, what's my resume? Like 20 odd years of like falling on my head. So I don't know what else. I have white hair, but I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So if anyone's hiring, let me know.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's such a fast moving industry as well. Like, yeah, new companies in new countries. I mean, wrestling is getting more worldwide as we speak. Well, not at the moment, but yeah, here we go. So, yeah, I hope I can see you many more times. So,
yeah, me too, man.
And yeah, because yeah, you've traveled very much. There were so many questions about your travels, and the first one was what was your longest flight that you ever had to take?
I think Australia, certain legs of that trip will be like 12 hours, maybe even 14, certainly at least 12. So once you go, yeah, like LA to Sydney or something like that, and I've been to Australia 4 times now. So, but yeah, a single leg of the trip will be, I mean, the trip itself could be, by the time you get all the different layovers and stuff, I mean, you might be traveling for 24 hours or something easily. I once had a 25-hour layover just in like Istanbul, Turkey. But on a plane, I think 12, 13 hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And a question that arises as well, do you have any weird, funny stories about your time on the road, like from flights and airports or, yeah, stuff like that?
I mean, nothing but it's a matter of do I remember them? Will they come to me? I mean, that's why I guess the older I get, the more I sort of settle into this idea that life is just about collecting stories. And that's like all we have. We don't get to like keep our money, possessions deteriorate and things like that. But I just feel like the point of living is like getting crazy stories and then sharing them and getting together with friends, old or new, and being like, one time this happened. So I've always said, like, as long as you don't die, then it's pretty rad. Because it's just like adventure over everything. Like you just want adventure. Now, at least once that's been like really put to the test. And I remember being like, well, maybe not anything. But just about anything shy of dying is like a cool story. So yeah, I just want to amass stories. So I mean, every trip I take, something happens that's memorable or fun or just different. I think so much of life is kind of this paint by numbers, like repetitive thing of like, wake up, go to work, come home, you're tired, go to sleep, blah, blah, blah. Like we're all in this like trap per se. So I just want to do what I can to avoid that. And the wrestling business is good for that because it's not really repetitive. Like every weekend, every week is so different, so crazy. I mean, like all of a sudden you're in Japan and you're up for 24 hours and you're in some weird bathhouse with Zach Gowen who has one leg and he doesn't want to slip on the bathhouse floor. So you have to hold him up. So you're walking around a bathhouse as like a 3-legged, 2-wienered monster and everyone's looking at you really weird in Japan. So it's like, and that's like a Tuesday at like noon. And then you're thinking of the time in the US and I'm like, all my friends are at work. And I'm a 3-legged monster in Japan right now. And that's not even like not even a weird story. You know, it's like, just like every second is like, what? And that's what I like is there's nothing, you just signed up for like a crazy death carnival and you're like holding on and like trying to survive.
We're having a visitor here.
A run-in. Good, how are you? I like the glasses.
Everything fine. Matt, there are always 5 minutes of our Instagram live streams where I jump in and share some funny moments with our guest out of the past. And, we know each other for a couple of years. It started in Germany with GSW, and very often you stayed here at our house in Switzerland. You're flying around Europe. And then during our tons of chats, we figured out that you like roller coasters and all these kinds of thrill rides. And then we checked out what is possible to do here in Switzerland. And we went with you to a bobsled lane near Interlaken in Switzerland, a very famous one. But then when we were there, we figured out it's more like for children. But you filmed it with your mobile phone and you posted it live on Instagram and you screamed like a child, and that was a really funny moment. So when you left to your next country to work, and we know that you will come back a couple of days later, Lily and I, we checked out the web and we looked for something special where we can go with you. And we find out that really near where we're living, there is also a bobsled ride, a really big one and a fast one. And we invited you to go there, and then we said, oh my God, like Matt is always filming with his mobile phone when there's something happening and it's quite dangerous. And you also said to us that in the US you will never ever see this because it's too dangerous. They will never ever let kids on it and so on. And we thought about if happens something with you, how we should tell this to Lucha Underground, that you get hurt or that you broke a leg or whatever in Switzerland. So we were a little bit afraid. And then we went there and you were totally thrilled. And we asked the guy who's running this bobsled lane, and he said, it's absolutely safe. Nothing can happen. Never ever someone got hurt or broke something. And then I go first. I went down and it was really fast. It was a high-speed bobsled lane, and you were the second one. And I was waiting. And there is no Matt Cross arriving. And after a couple of minutes, you arrived. You had a smile on your face I never saw before. And I said, Matt, what happened? And you said, I got thrown out of this bobsled lane. I lost my mobile phone. I was falling down the mountain. And you were laughing and filming, and you were so happy that we did this right. But it was a really funny moment. And the first time I was thinking, oh, what happened here? It was awesome.
Yeah,
always
yeah.
When we're here, we do something like this, and always it's very exciting to do exercise with you.
Yeah, and I'm getting nostalgic. I loved all those. I saw one, I haven't rode it yet, but in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, it's like a really touristy area. There's like Dolly Parton has a theme park and stuff. So it's really, again, like a tourist area. And they had like a mountain coaster, and I couldn't believe it. So I haven't rode it yet, but I really want to, because I want to see how it compares, because I know it's not going to be as good as the ones in Switzerland, because there's so many and they're so crazy. So I want to see how bad it is, because I'm sure it's like slow or whatever, or not as long. I mean, the one we went to in Germany was like 5-6 minutes long. I was like, there's so I love those things. Yeah, they're so unique.
In the Black Forest, I remember.
Yeah, they're so unique. I love it.
It was also a funny ride.
For sure.
So, enjoy the interview. Share some funny stories with us.
Yeah, definitely. That's all I got.
Fun, and hope we see you soon back in the ring. And
yeah,
hopefully the pandemic will end soon and we can start the wrestling season.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
Good to see you, dude.
And there is a
little tradition.
A second tradition we have to do. Okay, cheers.
These fancy glasses.
Yeah, they're quite cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it was water. So yeah, but speaking of water, I'll skip a bit ahead. We know you're straight edge, but did you ever drink any alcohol in your life? Or?
Yeah, like a million years ago. Like when I was maybe even like 8th grade, 9th grade, so like 13, 14, 15 maybe. Mm-hmm. So standard age for Switzerland, Germany. Okay. I started. I mean, that's early for the U.S., but I was in the European plan, I think. But yeah. I mean, my dad homebrews beer, so I grew up around it, and he was the president of a group called the Society of Northeast Ohio Homebrewers. So it's been around me my whole life. And yeah, I did. I mean, again, 8th grade, 9th grade. But I think by 15, I was already like, eh.
Okay. Was there any particular reason that you chose to go straight edge, or did you just enjoy it?
I mean, millions of reasons, really. I mean, the best way I can put it, if you take a shot of whatever it is, mm-hmm. What happens? I mean, I watch my friends, they take a shot and they go, ooh, right?
Yeah.
When I eat a piece of broccoli, I don't go, ooh. So, I mean, your body involuntarily is being like, maybe not the best. So, I mean, there's like health reasons, there's just a million different things. And I kind of saw that, like, I feel like it's, how do you say it? It's almost like packaged rebellion. So I think when you're really young, you get this idea that you're like an outsider and you shouldn't do it. And I think that's a lot of the attraction for some people, is like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, and this idea that you're bad or a rebel. And then the irony is every single person does it. So everyone's in their basement being like, I'm a rebel, I'm so different, I'm doing the thing that every person on the planet is doing without exception. So that's how I saw it. And I was like, wait a minute, if I really want to rebel and I really want to stand up against stuff, I'm going to not do the thing that every single person does. And that, to me, was the real way of pulling yourself away from that. So that was and still is like largely the attraction. I'm like, can I do this thing that's just so accepted and so normalized, and live outside of that? And people will always, they'll knock things like that. And they're like, well, no one ever said, like, no one's crazy night ever started like with I had a salad. I've like read that a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to be the living embodiment of, I have crazier stories than anyone on the planet, and they all started with the salad. So it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to do that to like, there's this association of like those people are boring or lame. And I sort of want to like live to exist to be an example of the opposite. Like, I don't think I'm boring and I don't think I'm lame. And like, if we want to take our clothes off and run down the street right now, cool, I'm in. But like, I don't have to be drunk. So like, I'm in the wrestling business, so it's like, I don't have a problem making a fool out of myself. So maybe that's something else already in me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have I mean, all my friends drink and stuff, so I don't care. But for me personally, like, I just don't see the appeal.
I never looked at it that way. That's okay. That makes me think. That's could you pass me the water? No, it's okay. Cool. Sorry, we have to get through some more questions, but that's a very interesting topic. If you want to join us at any point in the future again, I would really enjoy that, to talk about straight edge, especially a bit more. But yeah, we need to answer some more questions.
Sure.
Yeah, because you were in SWE quite a lot of times, and so of course questions came about that as well. And well, wait, I can scratch that question. Have you seen something from Switzerland except the SWE ring? Well, that was
tons.
Yeah, and but what comes to your mind first when you're thinking about SWE or Switzerland in general?
I'm not even saying this to like pander to the audience or be disingenuous or say it because we're talking about Swiss wrestling. Switzerland is my favorite country. And I'm on record saying that like anywhere and everywhere. So you can like cross-reference that with other interviews I've done, and like everyone knows that about me. Even as someone that's traveled so much, I get asked from people outside the wrestling business, like, where should I go? What should I do? Where's your favorite place? And every time the answer is Switzerland. I'm like, if you can take one trip in your life, that's where it has to be. Like, save your money and go there. And what I always tell people is it's like you're inside of a painting, and then every once in a while you leave the painting to go into a postcard, and then you leave the postcard and go back into the painting. But that's it. There's the two modes. I'm like, it's not real. It's like a simulation. It's like the Truman Show, where you're like, how is this even a real place?
Yeah.
And then I sometimes feel bad for Swiss people, because I'm like, they must go everywhere else in the world, even nice places, and be like, this place sucks. Like, everything would seem just like dirty and ugly compared to Switzerland.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden you're just on these like pristine mountaintops, and there's cows free roaming, and it's just this beautiful, picturesque vistas, everything else would seem lame by comparison. So I love it. It's so calming, and the nature, and I think in the US, like there's tons of amazing things, and the whole world obviously. But a lot of times you go to the cool thing, and let's say the hour drive there isn't the most beautiful part. So it's kind of like, okay, kind of crappy, kind of crappy, kind of crappy. Now we're at the thing, now it's nice. Whereas to me, in Switzerland, the whole hour to the thing would be as cool as the thing. So you're in the car and you're like, oh my God, what's that? Oh my God, can we stop? That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We're just on the road. We're just going somewhere. And I can't believe how much good stuff is packed in such a small area. It's just like I'm sure I haven't even done anything yet, and I've done at least a dozen unbelievable things. And it's like, man, there's just the choices and the availability of everything. It's just something else. It's just really, like I said, like a postcard, except it's not, you don't have to stand a certain way and not look around you and not move anywhere else. It's like this 360, like, I'm in a postcard. This is unbelievable. So
that's crazy to hear for me, because yeah, I live in Switzerland. It's like it's normal. I don't even really appreciate the beauty of this country. So it's really nice to hear that from somebody who just
it's like hard for me to, I mean, it makes complete sense, and I'm sure everybody, it's like if you owned a pool, like you probably wouldn't swim in it or something. So we're all familiar with that concept, but yeah, I live in Ohio, so Ohio is completely flat. So we have snow and everything, but again, just flat. So the idea of like mountains in the distance seems like something that was like a Hollywood backdrop that was like rolled in. So even just seeing that, I'm like, what the, like snow-capped mountains, like what? Like it doesn't seem, it's surreal to me. And then to be on these mountaintops and I don't know, it's really idyllic, it's just so nice.
Okay. There came a question. Sorry for cutting you off.
No
there's
problem.
a question that came in the chat. Sir Stephen von Funkenberg asked if you, as a wrestler, still watch wrestling. For example, the Royal Rumble that took place on Sunday, I believe.
I didn't see that. Sometimes I'll watch pay-per-views, like with my buddies. So it's a little harder with the pandemic because I almost like the camaraderie of getting together with your friends and trying to enjoy it as a fan. So during the pandemic, that's like tougher because when I watch wrestling by myself, it's really difficult to not make it some sort of like study or work. So it takes some of, if not all of the enjoyment out of it, because I can't like watch it as a fan. So I feel like, again, I'm studying it, I'm doing work. It's also really bizarre at this point for me personally, because every single person in every single company in the entire world is like a close friend. So it's super weird to watch. Like imagine if you only watched your best friends.
Oh God.
So it's just really bizarre for me because I'm like, it's all my buddies, and I just think of all these inside jokes that we have and all these trips that we took and all these funny things that we said. And like, I mean, like a weird anecdote, like me and Ricochet went to WrestleMania a couple of years ago, and we just had this funny way that we would like sing Brock Lesnar's theme song. So we're just in the audience with however many 60,000 people, and we're singing Brock Lesnar's theme song in our funny way. And then you fast forward a couple years, and he's like wrestling Brock Lesnar in like Saudi Arabia or something. So I can't even wrap my head around that because I'm like, it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago that we're in the audience watching Brock Lesnar, and I'm like, you're wrestling him? So watching wrestling is just so bizarre. It'd be like if you turned on the TV or you went to a movie theater and it was all your friends and nothing but. So it's, for me, it's so weird. So weird. So, yeah, so it's difficult, but I I miss, like, I'm looking forward to the pandemic being over so I can watch wrestling with my friends, because then you can sort of just enjoy it for what it is and try to lose yourself in the moment, which is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. But one question that just came up for me: how do you sing Brock Lesnar's theme song? How can you sing that? It's like that boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. I think I have to keep it personal, but we just make it silly.
Okay.
We insert other words that are funny.
Ah, okay.
So basically, if you just put any word that you want into that beat, it's hilarious.
Oh, I need to try that.
It's point for the next SWE karaoke show.
Stefan just said that's a good idea for the next karaoke show of the SWE.
Yeah. I mean, literally, whatever word you want in the world to put into that beat, like da 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 da. So it's word, 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 word. Just try it sometime. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we have some more questions about SWE, or like roughly connected to the SWE. Do you hold any other titles at the moment apart from the King of Switzerland title?
Say again. I missed the first part.
Do you hold any other titles apart from the King of Switzerland title?
Yeah. I'm the champion for WPE in just outside of Paris, France.
Okay.
I've had that for just over a year now, and I'm in Germany. EWP. I'm their Intercontinental Champion for over a year as well. And then here in the States, there's a company called Old Wrestling that does like a vintage throwback turn of the century styled show. And I've been their champion for 7.5 years. So they only run a couple times a year, but literally and successfully defended it for longer than most guys' careers at this point. So it's like 1,500 days or something. So I'm shooting for the longest title reign of all time with that one. And yeah, so I got a couple, and they're all over a year now, so that's kind of wild. And I'm a champion in Switzerland, Germany, and France, and the US right now.
Yeah, I believe you're the record champion for the King of Switzerland title already. With it should be 1.5 years now.
I guess that's the only good part about the pandemic.
Yeah,
it's padding all my records.
True. Thank goodness for Corona. No. Don't go there. So yeah, a question that also came up quite a lot is how did you come up with the idea for the Wrestling is Forever brand?
Yeah. So truthfully, going back to my gymnastics background, my sister was also involved. I have a younger sister, and she did it at a highly competitive level. And her and I were having a conversation about how gymnastics has informed us throughout our lives and made us into the people that we are. So to this day. And we were like, wow, like our decision-making process, our thought process, everything is informed by gymnastics. And she's like, yeah, Matt, that's because gymnastics is forever. And it just blew my mind. Like I fell on the ground because I was like, oh my God, she's so right. And I was like, what a powerful statement. Like it was so powerful to me. And I remember thinking like, well, I'm not involved in gymnastics now, but a lot of those things that were behind that thought carry over to wrestling, like this passion and this, to be honest, the stupidity and all of these different elements of it. Like I love how it's all encompassing. And I think wrestling is so unique. Like what other activity is there where these people just, I was inspired by, I mean, you look at like the Seth Rollins or whatever, guys that are at the top now. A few short years ago, they were sleeping here on the floor, like making no money. And I'm like, all in hopes that they would someday make it to where they now are. But I don't know if in professional basketball or professional baseball, guys make these 10-hour drives and sleep on their buddies' floors and stuff. Like maybe in punk rock, but it was just, I was inspired by that passion because people really do insane things in the name of wrestling. And fans too, traveling to shows and getting emotionally invested in characters and matches. And it's just such a unique thing. And I felt like no one had tried to capture that spirit. Like a lot of wrestling companies have like, wrestling is cool and it's a wrestling ring. But they're not as, you know, I'm at my 22nd, 23rd year in this world. And I understand it from a different, and I have that worldwide perspective and stuff. So I could just pull from different influences, and I like that it encompasses the good and the bad. So are the friendships that I've made going to last forever? A lot of them, yes. Are the memories going to last forever? I hope so. Are the injuries going to last forever? Yeah. Like, is there going to be brain damage? Absolutely. So it's not wrestling is cool or wrestling is awesome. Wrestling can be cool. Wrestling can be awesome. But wrestling is forever. The good, the bad, the indifferent is all encapsulated into this one thing that tries to capture the spirit of this weird thing that we like. So I just wanted to try to capture that. So that was sort of my inspiration. And I had all these ideas, and I was like almost thinking, why doesn't someone do this? And then I was like, oh, it will be me. Like my buddy said it well. He's like, you have the authority to publish. Someone could come up with that idea a year in, but they don't have the backing behind it to be like, hey, you know, like my resume at this point is untouchable. So it's like a guy like you needs to be the one that introduces this concept and kind of champions it around the world and stuff. Because again, I have this unique viewpoint that like, I've been to Sudan, I've been to Egypt, I've seen wrestling's effect on people around the world, and like it is forever. Like we're all, I mean, no matter what we think politically or religious or anything, we have this common bond of this crazy thing called wrestling, and I just think that's so powerful and awesome. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of create that, and it will be my connection to wrestling forever. And ironically, there comes the word again. So it's like, let's say I quit wrestling today. If I'm like, this is stupid, I'm done. I will continue to do wrestling forever. So I will have this connection to a thing that was a big part of my life for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it ends up being. It will be my connection to that scene and that love for the rest of my life. And I like that. And where does it evolve? I don't know, but I love could it be a podcast? Absolutely. Could it be a promotion? Sure. So it's so open-ended as far as where do I take it. And I love that I know what it means to me. What those words mean to me, and it probably means something to you, and it's probably completely different. And I love that, because I'll have fans come up to me and they're like, you know, I used to always watch wrestling with my father, and he's passed away, but through wrestling I'll forever have that connection with him, and that's what wrestling is forever means to me, which isn't something I thought of when I launched, but that's powerful. And when someone shares that with you, it's like, wow, like, and there's been a lot of things like that people have shared with me or told me that I didn't initially bring into it. So I love that it's just so all encompassing in ways, and it's motivating.
Yeah, that's I didn't even think about that so hard with wrestling is forever. I thought it sounds cool, but that there's so much behind it. So yeah, there came a question in the chat. If you would wrestle under the Son of Havoc gimmick again.
It's not my, it's the intellectual property rights of Ray, so I legally can't. Now, would someone pursue legal action and come after me? Probably not. But technically I can't. I don't even have like access to the outfit, to be honest. I mean, it was like the outfits never left the building. So it was like more or less a Hollywood set. And there was a wardrobe department and wardrobe people, and they would help you get dressed, and then you would give them the outfit at the end of the day, and they would catalog it and clean it and put it back into. So I never even went home with the outfit, so I didn't even have access to it. So, yeah, I don't even have the outfit, nor do I legally own the name or anything. So it's kind of beyond. It wasn't my idea, it wasn't my property. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, that sounds like it's not really possible.
Right.
So yeah, we have like a little part at the end of our live stream where we ask you 10 questions. Like, I'll give you an example, AEW or WWE, and you just have to choose one or answer in a word or in a sentence.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, like the first one is AEW or WWE.
Whoever calls me first.
Okay, good question. Good answer, sorry. Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram. I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, so it's a little more interesting since it's aimed towards photos.
True, yeah. If you could choose one opponent for a match, dead or alive, who would you choose?
My dream match was always and probably still is AJ Styles. We had like a four-way, but we never had a singles match, and that bugged me because I used to tell promoters 20 years ago that I would do it for free because I wanted to wrestle him so bad. Because we had a four-way in like 2002, and he was always kind of my favorite wrestler, and I think we could have and could still have like amazing matches. I think our styles would blend really well. So that just seemed like this no-brainer match that I was so upset never happened. So hopefully someday.
Oh, that would be a great match.
Yeah, I think so.
WWE WWE, if you're watching now, please make it happen. I would love that. They're probably not watching, but yeah. Where would you rather spend your vacation, on the beach or in the mountains?
I guess I'm so lucky because I've been able to do both. So, I mean, when I hear mountains, I think of Switzerland and how much fun I've had there. So I'm like there, but then obviously the beaches are no-brainer fun too. So I can't go wrong with either. I'll say the beach, but I'd like both.
Okay. Wrestling in the 90s or today?
I mean, I guess I got to go 90s just because I'm such an ECW freak. So it's like that's 98, 99 is when I was like so in that ECW bubble that was when to me wrestling was just so magical and so amazing, and it's impossible to go back to that time, unfortunately. I also think like because there wasn't really internet or it wasn't what it is today, people weren't as like cynical. So when I think of myself as an ECW fan, I don't care what happened, I loved it. Like somebody would come out and I'm like, yes, they're the best. And they would do something and I'm like, amazing. Like I never went online and was like, Balls Mahoney doesn't know how to work and I think they should have like. So that's what's unfortunate about like ECW or its exact equivalent could be born today and come back. And what would the majority of people say? It's not as good as this, or blah, 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 or this person's this and that. And that didn't exist back in the day. Like, there was a dude who was like a musketeer in ECW. Obviously, he sucked, but I thought he was the coolest dude ever. He came out. I'm like, he's a musketeer for God knows what reason. He rules. Like, everything that they did ruled because I didn't question it. I was like, they know better than me. I'm just here to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it. And if there was something I didn't like, I was like, whatever, that's life. Whereas now you would instantly go online and be like, I didn't like this part, and this needs to, and AEW does this better, and things would be ruined before they even started. And I just think that's like a sad place that like where everything's sort of gone, where it's like we have to. I don't know what the solution is if there is any, but it's just sort of I get bummed out thinking about that sometimes because like I'm like, man, ECW just ruled, and it would be impossible to sort of have that same environment for it now, which is unfortunate. So yeah, for me, late 90s was like what I sort of fell in love with. So that's like always going to be a magical time for me.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you said. I mean, I stopped watching wrestling for like 2 or 3 years before I first watched next SWE show. It was just so toxic, that environment on the internet. It's just, I don't know, just enjoy it. Take wrestling for what it is, not like, I don't know, it's not a science.
Yeah, and everyone's going to have an opinion about everything, and that's great. But like, I think people forget that like we're humans and we're all trying our best, and like no one ever said like this wrestler's the best wrestler ever, or this match is the best match ever, or it's just like we're all just trying, and like let's just have fun with it and not lose sight of. At the end of the day, like someone is starving to death somewhere in the world and about to die, and we're talking about wrestling. Like just like you have to realize its place in the world. Like it's just let's have fun with it.
Yeah. There came a question in the chat that perfectly works with this what we're doing right now. Who is your favorite ECW wrestler?
So there were 3 feuds that forever defined hardcore wrestling and made me want to wrestle. So the people involved in those feuds I mean, I'm going to say 6 people instead of 1, but like RVD versus Jerry Lynn was what, like, I was like, holy crap, like, what are these dudes doing? This is unbelievable. Because it was this athletic showcase that I just couldn't believe, and it was so ahead of its time. So both of those guys were instrumental to me. Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka, I was like, this is unbelievable. And then Super Crazy versus Tajiri, because from a gymnastics standpoint, I could really identify with what these guys are doing, and I was like, wait, this is gymnastics. This is awesome. And it was just so athletic, and like I didn't personally care if it was never Super Crazy slept with Tajiri's sister, so now he's mad, so now he's gonna slap. Like it was like, here's 2 rad dudes just being awesome. And I'm like, yes, like, so that was the attraction to me. So those 3 feuds and those 6 guys were always just like top. I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, RVD, I thought he was so like innovative. I liked that he brought this sense of you don't know what he's going to do next to the table. So whenever you watch his matches, he was just so athletic, and you were just unsure of what like insane thing he might do next, because I really believed that he could do anything, and I was just going to be wowed. So there was always this sense of excitement in all of his matches because, you know, he was so athletic.
Yeah. I loved him too when I was a kid. RVD was the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one is a title match or main event. So would you rather win the title or be in the main event of the show?
I'd rather be in the first match.
Okay.
I feel like fans always show up and they're so excited to see live wrestling, and live wrestling obviously is completely different than something you watch on television. Like you're part of this crowd, you're part of this live energy. I mean, like wrestling is meant to be enjoyed in person. And you show up at the show, and hopefully you brought some friends or family, and you're excited. And then that first match comes out, and your first chance to let out this energy. So I like being first and setting the tone and being the first things people see and enjoying that first bit of the excitement. Because it's hard to maintain a certain level. I mean, if you scream as loud as you can't do that for 8 straight matches. So by the time the last match comes out, you've lost your voice, your hands are raw from clapping, and you I mean, you could be tired. So I know I've sort of that's a real politician's answer. I sort of weaved my way out of that one, but that said, it's always nice to have titles as well, because then you know, it can seem silly, but it can also be really meaningful, and you know that it's like this, I don't know, tip of the cap to you that you're doing something right, and it is sort of neat to. I mean, if I look back now, it's like I've had like 20 or 30 or 40. I mean, who even knows? But it's sort of like, wow, that's really something. And I hoped to wrestle in another country when I started. I never even dreamed of like holding titles in other countries. So the fact that like I was heavyweight champion of a group called IWA in Australia. So it's like the fact that I've held belts in like Germany, Switzerland, France, Australia, like that's just insane. It's like it's literally insane. So I can't downplay titles too much, because I mean they are meaningful on some level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good answer. I can't complain that you went for opener and titles. So yeah. Yeah, there came a question in the chat. The first concert you want to see when concerts come back?
Oh man.
Ooh,
I mean, anything probably.
Yeah.
I was probably going to one punk show a week on average. So yeah, to go from that to nothing essentially overnight is jarring. I've been okay with it because I know that someday it will come back. I think if I thought it would never come back, then I would be like, oh my God, I'm not okay. But I'm just sort of enjoying the rest and being like, you know what, someday it's going to come back and it's going to be awesome. So, I mean, during the break, I sort of discovered new straight edge bands, ironically enough. So, there's a band called Inclination, and then there's another band called Year of the Knife that I've really been sort of enjoying during this downtime. So I'd like to see those bands, because I've never seen Inclination, I've never seen Year of the Knife. So I'd like to see them when this is all over.
Okay. And I never heard of those bands. I'm sorry, but
I know they're real small. So no
problem. And one last question where you have to choose. That question came from Stefan because he knows you a bit better than I do. Johnny Gargano or Sami Zayn?
I can't do that. You can't get me in trouble. Those are my best friends.
That was a great one. I'm sorry for it.
Yeah. That's like a parent choosing a favorite child.
Ooh.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You might also throw Ricochet in there too and just make it even more impossible.
Okay, wait a second. Last question. Johnny Gargano, Sami Zayn, or Ricochet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those are like my three favorite people. So,
okay.
they're all amazing guys.
Yeah. So we like to end the stream. Sorry, we know there's some questions in the chat still, but one question that we asked every wrestler till now is, how would you explain wrestling to someone who has never seen or heard about it?
I would say something to the effect of it's like a live action stunt show that unfolds real time before your eyes. Because I think that would I think people have preconceived notions of what wrestling is, and I think there's a lot of stigmas attached to it. And we grow up and like we're a kid and we learn that it's fake, and then we sort of carry that with us and that's hokey. So I would try to make mention of, because if someone explained to you like there's going to be a live action stunt show tonight where the guys have never done it before and they're gonna try it in front of your eyes for the first time, you wouldn't think of it in like, oh, so it's fake. You would go into it and be like, that sounds kind of cool. Like they're gonna like it's not a magic show. So when we fall on our backs, we fall on our backs. It's not an illusion. Like when we fall on our heads, we fall on our heads. So just trying to, and I always ask people like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? And before they can even answer, I tell them that's fake. So it's like everyone loves Batman or the Avengers, except there is no real Batman. If you're talking about the movie adaptation of Batman, that's an actor who gets take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4. Furthermore, if the Batman does anything cool, they call in a stuntman. So the Batman doesn't even do it. Another guy does it as part of a different take. So just in that little example, that's 3 layers of fake. There is no Batman. They get multiple takes. A stuntman does everything cool. So that's triple fake. So I don't understand how you can even try to use that word. If I go see the Nutcracker and you ask me, Matt, how was the Nutcracker ballet? And I go, well, it was fake. You laugh because I've completely, it's laughable. It's like, no, I didn't ask you if you thought there's a Rat King. I asked you if you liked the Nutcracker, if you enjoyed yourself. It's entertainment. So I would just do anything to shy people away from their preconceived notions. And that's another thing I try to do with Wrestling is Forever. Because I think if you say, yo, this guy drove 10 hours, he's going to meet a guy who doesn't speak the same language, and then an hour from now, they're going to fall on their heads in front of us. That might be like, hey, that's kind of interesting. As opposed to like, there's just so many preconceived notions of these ideas that we're calling each other ahead of time and being like, what do we want to do? I've been to Japan 4 times. I don't speak any Japanese. How does that work? I don't even know, and I've done it. So it's just so much more interesting than people can ever grasp.
That is a brilliant answer, and I want to thank you very, very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. Fascinating answers. And yeah, if you ever have the time, maybe a part 2, because we have some questions that we couldn't answer. But yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. And thank you very much. And
yeah, thank you.
I hope we'll see you soon in a ring. Well, hopefully in a SWE ring, but in any ring to see you again. It will be a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, definitely.
So yeah, thanks for the time, and bye, Matt.
Bisschen tschüss.
Ciao.